Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. As you're logging into the system right now, it's loading everybody in. We're going to start here in just a few seconds. So give me just a minute, let everybody's registration load. This is going to be a great call today. I'm excited to be here and share with you kind of how to think more strategically about your business and do the right things in the right order. And we have an amazing guest with us. I'll introduce Tammy here in just a minute. And you'll be glad to not hear from Verl as you start listening to Tammy. So we've got a superstar that's going to join us and talk about how she uses some of the tools to think more strategically in her business. Looks like we have a great group here today. I see lots of clients on the call, as well as non-clients, people who are part of our database, and I appreciate you all being here. So let me just start off by saying welcome. You know, here we are in July. I can't believe that it's July already. And on our coaching calls this last week, and I don't know if you've done this with your coach, Tammy, yet, but or even your clients, but yesterday on my coaching calls with each one of my clients, we looked at their year end for June, or the month end for June. And then we went through our strategic plan and looked at our goals, and we asked the question, are you on target for where you need to be for halfway through the year? And if not, what has to change over the next 60 days so that the third and fourth quarters are a home run and that we actually hit all of our stretch and dream goals? And it was really interesting. What we learned was that most of our clients are on target or ahead for their goals, and that there's still lots of lost income. There's still lots of things that we could be doing differently in order to generate more revenue. And so I hope you're all doing that in your businesses. Tammy, did you look at that with your coach this week?
Yes, we did. Yeah, and you hit it right on the head. I mean, we've already surpassed our listing count for the whole year of last year, so we're already ahead of what we produced last year, but yet our buyer count isn't where it needs to be.
Right, and I noticed that with several clients. So what we did is we talked about that. We talked about the ratio between listings and buy-side closings, and you should have 1.5 buy-side closings for every listing closed. So if you have 40 listings, you should have 60 buy-side closings, and if you don't, then you have to look at the reason why. And it really came down to a couple of different things for most of my clients. And one of them was that one of the things that came down to is we just don't have enough people, and so we have to recruit and add more people. We think by adding more people, that would solve the problem. And then I looked at the individual agent production, and we say that in order to be on one of our teams, you have to produce a minimum of 2 transactions a month. So how many of the agents are at 12 for the end of June? And if they're not there, then maybe recruiting more agents isn't the problem. Maybe it's we have to do a better job developing the ones we have so that they're doing that 3 to 5 transactions a month and they're actually busy. And there was some real good clarity that happened as a result of it being the middle of the year. And so as all of you are logging onto this call, and I appreciate all of the people that are here, there's a great group of you here, I want you to look at your numbers and I want you to ask yourself the question, am I where I should be for the end of June? And if not, what needs to happen to change? So for many years, I've been an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur has some upsides and has some downsides. The upsides are is you're constantly thinking, you have all these great ideas, and you want to try new things, and you want to become, amazing at whatever that business venture is you're into. The downside of being an entrepreneur, you grow and you start adding people, is you expect and you want them to think like you think. And what I've learned is I'm glad that they don't, because if everybody was an entrepreneur and everybody thought the way I thought, there would be all kinds of confusion and madness happening in the business. There would be no consistency in the way we do things. I had a couple of business partners that for about 15 years, I was in a business where I had partners. And I remember sitting in a conference room having a meeting, and one of my partners said to me, Verl, you just need to stop talking. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, every time we have one of these meetings, you have so many good ideas that we don't ever execute on the ones that came previous. And so what happens is we have a high level of energy and we feel fired up, but we're not moving the needle in the areas that we need to move it in. And that really bothered me. I felt like how can I not talk? This is what I do. And he was just very clear. He says, what we need to do is we need to come up with a format or a program to help you think more strategically in the business. And that when you come up with a great idea, we need a place to hold that idea. And then when it's next on the list, then we'll focus on executing that idea. Even though we might need you to go off on it, you need a place where you hold that. And so the guy's name was Stan, and he introduced me to a concept that they had used in software development. And Stan had joined my business. He had been in international vice president of sales for a technology company, building out a worldwide sales force. And so in working with technology companies, he worked with a lot of IT professionals. And these IT professionals were, they were engineers who would write code. And when you build code, but you've got 30 people working on a project, you have to be real organized in what that project looks like. What code needs to be written in what order, who's working on what piece of code, what are the impediments. If I put your piece of code in before this piece is in, then the software is not going to work right. And so he explained this complicated process to me called Agile project management. And when he explained this Agile project management to me, the light went on, and I said, "This is brilliant." And I even read a book on it. I watched videos on it. I started really looking at it. And what I decided to do was I'll call it workmanize it. Another word would be to say dumb it down. I had to dumb it down so that it was more simple, so that in my own business, I could really start thinking a lot more strategically. I could think about how do we get things done, and how do we help our clients move things forward. And so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about what that actually means and how we do it. I want to first introduce my guest today. This is Tammy Slay. Everybody can probably see Tammy on the video. She's a broker owner out of Frisco, Texas. She has the HIP Realty Group. Tammy is one of my favorite people, not just because she's a coach and also a client, but because whenever she walks into the room, she just brings this enormous amount of energy and light with her. And people are attracted to her because of the light that she exudes. And I appreciate having her just part of our family so much. I don't mean to embarrass you, Tammy, but it's true.
Woo.
Yeah, that's right. She's glowing. She's a team leader. She's a broker owner. She's got 2 different real estate companies. She's a CRS, a GRI, and SRES. She's a Workman certified coach, and she's also gone through our Workman Way facilitator program, so she can lead the live BAM and the live slam classes. She's, her greatest calling, she'll say, is her job at home, and that's as a wife and a mom. She has 4 children and a dog, produces an enormous amount of real estate. She volunteers in her community. She has lots of personal awards and achievements. I love the way that the words that people use to describe her. Her name's Tammy Slay. She goes by the Slayer. And who calls you that? I want to know who calls you the Slayer.
Clients call me that. It's crazy, and they wanted me to name my business that, and I just would not do it. But
the real estate Slayer. I don't want to be on the other side of a negotiation from someone tagged the Slayer. That's awesome.
I bring a different light.
Yep. That's a different. It's the red light. It's the Darth Vader light. Anyway, she's got just an enormous amount of real estate knowledge. She's a good person, and she's running a great team. As we go through, and I'm talking about Agile today, and we're talking about the way we think through it, I'm going to share with you, and Tammy and I are going to talk about some different kinds of Agiles that are being run by some of our clients. We're going to actually get into hers, and we're going to actually break it down, show you some of the things she's working on, how she thinks strategically, and how she's taken what we've taught and kind of customized it to the way she thinks, which is fortunately different than the way I think, because when you take different approaches to things, you end up with something better for everybody. During this discussion, I would encourage all of you to just take a minute real quick and go to your message board and just write hi, so I know that you can do that. Let me know that you can ask questions, because I'm going to be monitoring questions during the webinar, so I want you to feel free to just ask questions. Let me know that you're here real quick. Go into the chat bar, or the question bar, and just start typing them in. Rui says hi, Verl. There you go. Buster Levin says hi from Tampa. Chris is all good. We have people from Atlanta. Jason says hi. I don't know why they all want to say hi to you, Tammy, not to me. I don't understand that.
Hi, Eileen. Hi, Mike. I'm just going to take over. I'm going to start saying hi to everybody. Hi, Tony. Hi, Tina.
Tina in Colorado Springs. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you. I'm glad you're all here. Now make sure that as we're going through here that you understand where your chat button is. I see it. We see that you're there. You can type in and ask questions. So if you have any questions as we go through this together. And so the big thing that entrepreneurs ask themselves all the time is what's next. We have a tendency as business owners to to focus on the things that make the most noise, as opposed to focusing on the things that are the most important. Does that make sense, Tammy?
Yes, it does.
It's like whoever's making the most noise at the moment, even though it's not the most important thing, we stop what we're doing to eliminate the noise and solve the problem. And we do that with marketing. I found that a lot of people, which is really kind of interesting, I find that a lot of people will go to a show, or they'll go to a convention, or they'll go to you go to NAR, you go to the REMAX convention, or Coldwell Banker School, you go to any of the national conventions, and you get all of these ideas. There's all these speakers, and they all have all these tools, and they have all these systems. And I call it my trick or treat bag. You get your bag, and you walk around to all the vendors and booths, and you get the free swag that you're going to give your kids. Pencils and chapstick and measuring tapes, and every once in a while you get something really great, like some cool sunglasses or a kaleidoscope, and you put them in your trick or treat bag. But also you put in there all of the things that you came across that you thought were interesting. You maybe heard about Boomtown or Commissions Inc., or you heard about RealVolve, or you heard about Red X, or you heard about a new social media guru, or you should now be a video expert using YouTube, and here's a new tool for it. So you come home with all of these things, and what we do is we dump. So we have all these great ideas, and we bring our team in, and then we brain dump. We go, okay, I got this and 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 this. And they go, that's awesome, let's go. And then you give it to your team thinking that something's actually going to happen. And then you go off and you start doing real estate, and you get into your business, you do transactions, because we're transactional, not project-based. We do our transactions, and then 60 days go by, and you ask your team, what would you do with that thing? And they go, oh, nothing. Or they say, I sent you an email on it, but you didn't respond. But there was no structure, and there wasn't any process, and there wasn't any strategy into the execution of that concept. And so, and you know what happens next? Another event. So then you go to the HAR event, and all of a sudden you're at the Houston Association of Realtors event, and there's new people with new ideas and new vendors and a new trick or treat bag. And you come home to your team and you go, I just went to the best event, and I have all of this stuff, and you have a new bag. And then you sit down with your team and you share with them all the ideas, and they go, yeah, okay, knowing very well that you're never going to follow up with them, and you're not going to execute any of that. Tammy, does that sound familiar to you or anybody else?
You know what? I'm just sitting on the edge of my seat wanting to wait for you to break, because I wanted to jump in on this. And this was something I learned from Leverage 2019 earlier this year. And I can't remember if it was Cleve or Jim that was talking on this, but it was Coach Training. It was Coach Training last year, and they gave an idea, and I've implemented since then. You'll see it on my Agile later. And I came back and talked to my team about it, and you're spot on. We invest a lot of money by going to all these events, and then we get no return on it because we do nothing with it. It fires us up for about 3 or 4 days, and then we get back into our habits. And what Jim or Cleve talked about was you take all that at the end of the event and you dump it. And you just dump it somewhere, and then you sort it and focus on just 3 things that are most important of that. And then you implement it throughout the year. And I have that. My Agile was the Leverage 2019 dump and sort as one of our sprints. But it was, I can't think of the amount of money that Jim and Cleve have saved me and my team members just from that one tidbit. It was huge.
Yeah, but it's not that you got the tidbit, it's that you actually created a plan to implement it, right?
Yes, true.
How many money-making or money-saving ideas have you had over your career that you haven't implemented?
Oh, I don't even know if I want to think about that. Would put me in a level of depression I don't even want to think about.
Well, so I think that sometimes that's what it requires us to do, is to think about the lost income of not doing the things that we know we should do, because pain is a much greater motivator than the anticipation of pleasure. If I were to say that, if you implement this one new thing, you're going to make another sale and you can make $4,500, you go, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But if you had a $4,500 check on your desk and I came by and took it from you, you would be like, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
And so right? And so we have to find that pain, and we have to figure out how to, whatever motivates you, we have to figure out what to do next. And so this whole concept of, I have so much to do, how do I prioritize, what's next, how do I think? Let me share with you how we think through it. And so what we did is we took Agile project management, and I'll call it, we workmanized it, and we created a system that allows us to think a little bit differently. And it starts by having a place that we call a backlog, or a project backlog. It's where we dump all of our thoughts and ideas. Once we dump a thought and idea into our project backlog, it just stays there. And then when we meet with our team, we talk about what the priorities are based on the backlog, and we give each thing a number. I'm going to show you what this looks like. And then we prioritize it in order. And then based on the number, we work on the highest priority first. I'm going to teach you how we think priority-wise. Once we decide that something on our project backlog is now going to be done, we then give it a date, a start date, and then an estimated done date. And then we create what's called a sprint. A sprint is just like what it sounds. It's when you get out and you sprint to get it done. It's now all hands on deck. We're gonna execute this project. We're gonna stick it from start to finish. It has a clear definition of what finish means, and we have all the tasks that need to be done in order to get that done. In order to keep your sprints moving forward, we get together daily for what's called a daily scrum. The daily scrum is also a huddle. So we do a daily huddle with our key reports, and we go over what's happening on those sprint tasks. Now, this is where most leaders fail. Most leaders create the project backlog, and they put themselves as the project owner, and then they create the daily sprints or the sprint tasks, putting their name on most things, because what is it about us as owners, Tammy? Nobody can do it what?
Like we do.
Right, nobody can do it as good as us. No one can do it as good as us, and so we put our name on everything. And so nothing gets done because we're still busy doing real estate transactions. We're transactional focused. And so we're going to talk about what that looks like. I'm going to share with you some sprints and some things where we've had to help teams make adjustments and changes so they could grow. But that daily huddle is so important. Your job as a leader, and I want everyone to write this down, your job as a leader is not to do tasks. Your job is to remove impediments and to empower your people. So your job is to make sure they have all the resources, the vision, the answers to their questions so that they can move the projects forward. Your job is to have a high level of communication and share your vision, not check things off. Yes, you can write that down, Tammy.
I'm writing it down.
And then as we get it done, you see it all come together and you end up with this beautiful thing. So as we get into prioritization, we think about how we're strategically thinking about the business. I'm going to share with you the three things we look at when we prioritize on our Agile. The first thing that I have to tell you this, is that transaction activities are not on your Agile. So it's not your to-do list of all your closings and all your to-dos for files. That belongs in your workflows in RealVolve or whatever you use for your CRM. So those tasks are transactional. Transactional activities are how we make our money. We always do those first. So they're always the priority. I mean, if you've got a client that's closing and you've got a closing at 2 o'clock, you don't have a backlog meeting. You go to your closing, and that's where we get paid. So transaction activities don't belong on the Agile. So I need everybody to understand that. Do transaction activities belong on the Agile?
No.
Okay. And so then how do we prioritize our Agile? The first thing is we look at, I say, whatever the project is, I put it into one of 3 categories. Is it a money-making activity? Is it an event that has a date associated with it? Or does it have to do with the operations of my business, creating operational excellence? So are they money-making activities? Are they events with dates? Or are they operational excellence? Now, one of the things that is interesting is, I don't know, Tammy, if I were to ask you what Agile means, what does it mean to be Agile?
What is it? I guess physically what it means to be Agile is to be in movement, is to be flexible, is to move around, right? But if you're asking me what this Agile means, it means, and I heard this and I copied it from somewhere else, but abstract to application. So taking an idea and putting it in action.
Both are great answers. And your first answer could be applied to the second thing. So it means we're constantly in movement. Priorities change based on what's going on in our business, what's going on in the market. You know, you may have on your list to develop relationships with banks, but over the last couple of years, the market's been so good that bank-owned properties have gone way down. And so that's moved to a lower priority on your Agile. But now as the market starts to soften, maybe thinking ahead, that might move up on your project backlog as something to start working on, or start thinking more strategically about how we take advantage of people that might find themselves in a distressed situation. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying that's an example of agile things move. Events with dates would be like client events or things like that. The closer the event gets to doing it, the higher it moves up on your project backlog until you have to create the sprint and then just do it. And so events with dates take priority over operational excellence. This is another challenge that I see with a lot of teams, and that is that they go the opposite, where the team leader delegates everything to their office manager or their client care coordinator. The client care coordinator, who's the analytical, likes everything to run perfectly, and so they focus on all of the operational activities, and they don't have any money-making activities at the highest part of the priority. And so what happens is I have a really well-run business that's not doing any transactions, and that doesn't work for anybody. And so we always focus on dollar productive activities first. There are some things that every business needs, and if you haven't implemented them, you must. And if you get those implemented, you'll find that you'll have the resources to be able to execute on the other things that are on your project backlog. All right, so money-making activities, events with a date, and then operational excellence. And that's how we prioritize. And we can have a sprint in each of those categories going on at the same time, but I can't have 5 things going on at the same time, based on most companies' human resources. So I've got four different project backlogs here. I have Christy Bucks, I have Lee Tessier's, I have Paul Wheeler's, and I have the infamous Tammy Slay's. And so I'm going to I share with everybody Christy Buck a lot because she's been with me since before we started the company. You can't see these screens very well. I'm going to go live into the actual sprint, and they'll come full screen. And so if you're not seeing the screen well, that's okay. But one thing you'll notice about all of these is, as you look at these, is you can see that they've got dates, they've got priority numbers on the left, and then some have more descriptions than others on what's going on in the rest of the screen. I'm going to click on Christie's. As I go into Christie's sprint, now can you see this better, everybody? Is that more clear?
Yes.
Okay, so as you're looking at Christie's sprint, here's some of the elements. The first thing is we write down all of the things that we want to accomplish. Now, how many activities? Now, I've been coaching Christie's since 2012. So how many years is that? 7 years, going on 7 years. So after 7 years of coaching, do you think she still has new ideas and new things we're focused on, or do you think she's done?
No, she's got lots of ideas.
Okay, no, she's got 46 things on her project backlog. Now, as an owner, can you go out and do 46 big projects and get them all done?
No.
No. So what we do is we start with something that's critical. We might say something like, I need each of my agents closing 2 additional transactions a month. This is a direct result of the ratios being off on the listings. And so once we decide that we're going to do this, you see that it's 60% done, then we build what's called a sprint. Now you'll notice that I want you to notice who the project owner is on all of these sprints. Susan, Samantha, Michelle, Jordan, Christy's on a couple of them, but they're not priorities. And then we have buyer's agents on others. So you don't see Christy's name on hardly any of these, do you, Tammy?
Nope.
Because her job is to do what?
Her job is to remove impediments.
It's to remove impediments, not to do tasks. And so once we decide that we want all of our agents to increase their production by 2 units each, we then build what's called a sprint. A sprint is when we go down, and now each one of your, I'm going to show you this right here. It's called a sprint template. So inside your Agile, when we created this for you, there's what's called a sprint template. So on this sprint template, I go right here and I duplicate that. When I duplicate it, I then give it a name and rename it. So I always have my sprint template that's blank. Then I go in and create a tab that allows me to build my to-do list to execute on that particular project. So if I want to increase my agent's production by 2 units a month, I make a list of all the things of exactly what I need my agents to do, including working their top 50. We've got to run the BAM Live class. We've got to get 2 more listing partners so that they have more opportunities to work. We have to do all of these things in order to get our agents producing. We have to door knock as a group for open houses and around open houses. So they put together a list of all the things they want to implement, and you'll see where they've got 100%, 100%, 100%. When we go in and do our coaching calls or when they do their daily huddles, Christy's job is to have Samantha report to her how we're moving the needle forward in this particular sprint. What makes the difference between average and exceptional is that the exceptional, they get stuff done. I want you to look at all of Christy's sprints. As I'm scrolling through the bottom of this, first of all, it should be a little bit intimidating, but this is what happens over the years. So we run all of these sprints, and we might run something for 2 or 3 times, and then when it's something like an event and we've dialed it in on a sprint, then we create a workflow, put it in RealVolve, and then next time we do it, we just turn it on and it goes. So we'll run it in the Agile a couple of times until we perfect it. Then we'll go in and create an action plan or a workflow around it. I'm looking for my completed tasks. So one of my favorite ones is the tab, and it's probably already at the end. Maybe she never gets it done. We go to our done projects. This is when you realize you're getting stuff done. And so the way that we look at each of our teams that we're coaching is we look at their Agiles, we go in and look at what they're currently working on, and then we ask the question, are you getting stuff done? And look at all of the done projects. And so these are all projects that were at one time on the project backlog that are now on the completed tasks. That's what it means to run your business strategically or to think strategically about your business. Each of our clients runs it a little bit differently. So let's jump in, and I want to spend a little bit of time with Tammy. So let's jump into Tammy's Agile.
Okay.
So Tammy, you've added an extra column. You have a picture. Where's your picture? It'll load here in a second.
Yeah.
There's a picture of a book. I want you to take us through how you use Agile in your business and how you're thinking about it.
All right.
And then we're going to do like a little bit of a live coaching as we work through some of these projects.
Okay. So I started, Agile first was a learning curve for me, and understanding the importance of it. So the backlog ended up being just dumped full of tons of ideas, because I get a lot of ideas. Many of us do get a lot of ideas. And sorting it was hard because I saw these ideas and I thought, well, I really like that one, and that one's important to me too, and that one's important to me as well. So I ended up being that the backlog was just for me, it was too much with all my different ideas. And then I really just had to focus on my pillars. So the pillars, and you'll see that I have a sprint for each pillar. So in my brain and the way I think is
So describe what the pillars, a lot of people don't know what the pillars you're talking about are.
Okay. So the pillars are 4 pillars of income. So if I have a goal to make $500,000 a year, then I need to develop a pillar of income to reach $500,000 a year per pillar. And that's what I build out for the year as my goal, and what I work toward in building that out is you build each pillar to hit your goal. So if you hit 100% of all 4 of your pillars, then you've just made essentially $2 million. But if you only hit 25% in one, but 50% in another, and 25% in another, and 25% in another, then you have hit your goal plus another 25%. So that's the purpose, and that's the workman way, the workmanize it. I like that term that you used earlier, is we all develop 4 pillars of income. So it's developing 4 pillars, especially, and I've been in real estate a long time, so I remember when 2008 happened, and my sphere that I had relied on at that time wasn't producing a lot because I had 1 pillar of income, and that was my sphere. The other pillars, now that I have more pillars, is I'm generating a mode of income other than just my sphere. Right? Did that answer the question good enough about pillars?
Yeah, absolutely. So now I know what the pillars are, and so tell me what that column A says.
So column A is a link, and it's also it defines my pillar. So pillar 3001, that's for a sprint that is within my pillar. So I know that that one sprint in my backlog is out of pillar 3, which is my events. I know pillar 1 is building my team and my agents, which is a pillar for me as the team leader and the owner. So I've just numbered and put a link on it so I don't have to scroll through that bottom like you were doing earlier, Verl, trying to find where it was. I link it directly to that sprint. And Samantha can use that too if she wants to copy it from me.
Yeah, we'll share it with her.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's why every sprint I have is linked to one of my pillars. So for me, my backlog isn't as big because like if you go click on pillar 1, you're going to see, if you click on the pillar 1 sprint down there, it's basically a backlog. Yeah, right there. That is a backlog for just pillar 1. So I've kind of created 4 backlogs within one backlog, if that makes sense for those that are familiar with the Agile. But every idea that I have that is around pillar 1, which is building my team and my agents, is in this backlog here. And if you scroll down, thanks Joe, appreciate you. If you scroll down, you'll see what I've done, and then you're going to also see the links to the actual sprints for them.
Okay, that's really cool. So I haven't seen this. So let's pick one. Show us one. What's a FRBO campaign?
So that was a For Rent by Owner campaign, and that was one that Jamie did on our team, and she developed that all on her own and was very successful with it last year. But that was working with RedX and the For Rent by Owner program there. If you click yeah, there you go. And then if you want to click on the onboarding buyer agent, that's okay. Pillar 1006. Yeah.
Right there.
Yep. So this is what we do when we're onboarding an agent. This is building it out. And I learned this actually from attending this setup here, just this spreadsheet setup. I learned from attending the 7-figure ride along. And it has all the links to what I'm using for when I'm onboarding an agent.
You know, what's funny is, is it Tommy? Tommy said, hey, this is so jargony, it sounds like I'm joining a cult, not learning a system. We have a lot of terminology that we use in Workman Success System that if you're not involved in it, you don't really understand it. It does get confusing. And so I'll try and do a better job. If there's something you don't understand, just ask the question. Say, yeah, what does that mean? Or what is that term? A 7-figure ride along is a program where people can go into Christy Buck's team and spend a couple of days with her team, where she actually takes you through how she runs her business and how she's gone from, you know, a couple $1 million. She went from 250,000 income all the way up to she's on target to do 3 million this year in gross closed income. And so, you know, how do you get there? And a lot of that happens at the 7-figure ride along. So now take me through the onboarding process.
So the onboarding, it breaks it down to the initial appointment with me. It also groups it in steps of, you know, first we go over the HIP intro slideshow. That's our HIP Realty Group slideshow. 10 things to be on my team, which was another document that I learned from somebody else within the Workman Success Systems. The team member agreement sign.
Do you care if I share that? I think.
Oh no.
You know, one of the things that's really important, and as Tammy and I might joke around a little bit about, and you might hear someone's name, is that the way that we get better at what we do, I call it the wisdom of the crowd, is we all share with each other what's working, what's not working when you have something that's good. I don't even remember which coach or client shared this, but during the interview process, we created a document that says, here's the 10 things that you need to know if you want to be on my team. And you got to convince me that you're willing to do those things. And so during the interview process, how do you explain this?
I just go over what I expect of them. Some things they're unfamiliar with, the daily success habit tracker, and I pull it out and we talk about the purpose of it and tracking our daily activities and the points. But we just hit it, you know, one at a time. Show up at the office on Mondays by 9 a.m. That's our Monday meeting. So I talk about that. We have a Monday morning meeting every Monday at 9 a.m. and it's 2 hours. We do our daily huddles. They need to attend at least 4 days a week, but the goal is 5. But that's our morning 15-minute daily huddle where we talk about what's working, what's not working, what are our goals for the day, a little pep rally. We talk about the daily success habit tracker, the 61 points, reaching that. They need to be at a minimum of 20 calls a day. I do something a little different. The state of Texas, which is where I'm at, we have a continuing education requirement of only 18 hours every 2 years. So that's about 9 hours a year. I require 36 of my agents to be on my team. Even those that aren't licensed right now, admin, they need to be spending 36 hours in continuing education a year. Personal growth is very important, and it's highly valued in the market right now with the number of agents that we have. So I talk about that. And that's a disqualifier. I've had people when I've reached that and they've kind of gone, I can tell by their expression when they're like, that they're not the right fit for our group. Talk about
your agents are going to be better trained. They're going to be better experts. They're going to provide better. I mean, I can't think of any downside to requiring higher level education. I think it's a joke what our industry requires to get licensed.
Yeah, I think my hairstylist might require more. And then we spend more time on the daily, we talk about workbench, using your top 50 list. That's working with your sphere. So for those that aren't with the Workman Success Program, those are the top 50 people that you know that like and trust you. And we talk about that's a system that we teach, and they have to make quality contacts with them. Have a live lead of A, B, or C up to 6 contacts. We talk about what the A, B, and C stand for. Open houses, they're required to do a minimum of 2 open houses a month when hitting target goals, and attend and participate in company events. Work on a calendar of events with your sphere, but at a minimum, birthday, anniversaries, pie giveaways, and holiday cards. And plan to close at least 24 units per year. And that's the minimum goal. The target goal is 36 with a stretch goal of 48.
Love it. So I love how one of the things that I'm watching as I go through this with you is I love how you've created links to things that require more information. A lot of people, the way they use their sprints and their agiles is they get so long because each thing has so many tentacles to it, and there can be to-dos within to-dos that have to do with one project. So I think it's brilliant that you've created that. I think it's really cool. And this is just the agent onboarding system. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing what is RealVolve, and how is that a pillar?
So RealVolve is part of my pillar 1, which is let's build out RealVolve and build our workflows within RealVolve. And so it's just everything that I know, either I've had an idea or someone in the team has had an idea. If they want to request a certain workflow, we dump it here and add it. What we've done so far is the new executed contract, so an escrowed buyer and seller contract to close, a new buyer agent, this is their onboarding, a new admin, that's their onboarding, new team leader, new listing agent, and our top 50 campaign.
So what's RealVolve?
Oh, RealVolve is CRM and transaction management program software, similar to Top Producer, but on steroids, if I could compare.
What were you using before?
I was using Top Producer, kind of. I wasn't really using Top Producer because I just had too many issues with Top Producer. So we were more focused out of just running it out of our Google contacts. That was more of our CRM. But RealVolve we've been using now for about 1.5 years, and it's been a game changer. I mean, RealVolve really does take the place of a team member or an admin position on the team, and it helps us to perform at a higher level, higher production. So it handles it. Did I explain enough, or should I go in more detail?
No, I think it's great. Let's go back to your backlog. Let's look at some of the other things you're thinking about. Okay. So how do you go through your process of prioritizing, and who's involved in that meeting with you?
Well, really, it's the whole team, and then it's in our one-on-one. So I have a one-on-one meeting with team members during the week, and in that meeting, I ask them, what can we do to better help you? What are you missing? What do you need? And it could be just a simple workflow idea, or it could be something that's bigger, like this Create a Touch campaign for event contacts. We started really pushing events for our team earlier this year, and that is an actual pillar of income for us. And when we started doing the events, they were going great, and they are going great, and they're going very well. But we didn't have anything in plan to, okay, now what? Okay, so we've got 300 new contacts. What do we do with them? What's the plan other than just putting them in RealVol? How are we reaching out to these people and leveraging all that information? So this was
one. Should we take a look at it?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is the event follow-up. This is something we're just starting to work on here. If you want to even look at the event, if you click on events follow-up at the top there, that'll take you to the pillar itself if you want to see what events we're doing. But right now our contacts, just reaching back out to them. We've had some, let me see here. All right, we can do that. We have it in Google, our Google Photos, but we can do that. Contest winners, yeah, we do that, but it's not written there.
Should we develop this?
Yeah, so I know you're going.
So when we're brainstorming, now this is a brainstorm. You can take any of these things off here. You do it right. So you're doing photos and you're putting them somewhere, but where are you communicating that to your client? So in your follow-up emails, when you're communicating, let me tell you why I love events. It's because it gives you non-sales touches with the people you care about. You get to invite them to the event, you get to remind them of the event, you get to tell them it's coming up tomorrow, and then when they're there, you get to shake hands and kiss the babies and have fun. And then when they're done, you get 3 or 4 more additional touches around that event, and not a single one of them, do you ever ask them, do you know anyone that wants to buy or sell real estate? Do they work for you? Tell me how they're working for you as you do events.
They're working really well. I do, if you want to pull up the pillar, just click on the events follow-up and touch. It's a link. It'll take you right back to that actual pillar. So these are the events that we are working on right now, and the ones that we've already done this year are at the bottom. So we've started something called It's On Us, and meaning that we're going to buy it for you, and we're supporting local small business community businesses like mom and pop shops. One is Fizz Drinks. That was the first one we did of the year, and so the It's On Us was we bought everybody a drink. They just had to show up and we bought them a drink. We did have them register, so they would at that time we had little cards that was a coupon for a free drink, and they wrote their name and their contact information on the back of it, and then they turned it in at the register when they placed the order, and that let Fizz know they were with us. And then we collected all those at the end, and then took that data and that information and put it into Google, and then slowly kind of making contact with a couple of people there. We just didn't have a plan for it, and that's what prompted us when we realized, hey, we're doing all this stuff, but we're not really executing on anything. Cookie Rack was another one we did. It's a local shop that has really good, yummy cookies, and so we bought everybody a cookie rack. For the Peachway frozen yogurt, we bought everybody a cup of frozen yogurt. Toy Story event, that was one we just did. You might have seen that video go out on the Workman's Facebook page on that one. But I would
Nicole asked you a quick question. She said, are all these events for everybody in the community, or do you market it to just your database or past clients, or is there a differentiation between a community event and a client appreciation event?
Yes, so these are all, except for that Whirly Ball, every other one has been a client or a community event. So anybody that follows us on Facebook or Instagram, or we would just email out to who we have an email contact for, can show up at that event. It doesn't take a lot to execute those type of events. They've been a huge hit. I would say our lowest new contacts was about 110. We had more people show up than that, but these were new contacts. And our highest was a little over 300 people that came and brought in new contacts for us.
And so how are you measuring the results and the ROI?
Well, it was kind of like execution without thought. Let's just do it. Let's just get out there and let's just do it. We don't have much of a measurement. Have I gotten leads from it? Yes. Do I have listing contracts from it? Yes, I do. But I don't have, and that what prompted that number one, which is on the big backlog of, we've got to have a touch system in place. We got to have something there that tells us what we're doing. We get all this contact information in, and one thing we are now switching over to is electronically registering, because we had them fill them out on little coupon cards and taking that data and manually typing it in. And it wasn't me doing it, but for Mandy to manually type it in, it took several days to put all that information in there. So now we're changing it to using an iPad. Bring a friend, get an XXX. Yep, that's good. The movie event, though, the purpose of that one was to increase our follow base on social media. So that one we actually marketed it, and you won a ticket by tagging so many people in one of our, you had to follow our page, you had to tag people, someone you tagged had to follow. So there was I'm not in charge of that. I'm trying to think how she did it, but it was a campaign to boost our follow base on social media. So it wasn't even a client appreciation movie event. So a lot of people that attended that, we didn't even know either. And that one was a huge hit. That one we handed out t-shirts to everybody that attended. And since then I've been tagged in numerous posts of people just with t-shirts. Someone ran into somebody else at a community pool. Somebody ran into somebody else getting their oil changed, and they saw someone wearing a hip t-shirt. So they snagged a photo of it and they tagged me, said, "Hey, do you know this person?" And I didn't know them. But it's been fun to see that, there's these 200 t-shirts that are walking around the community.
So Tammy, since you've been using Agile and you've been executing priorities and thinking through the processes, how has that impacted your business? What kind of growth are you seeing in your business over the last couple of years?
Well, I mean, huge growth. Hip Realty Group was created with Agile, truly. I had one company prior to this, and it was a new company that I had just bought. And when I started coaching with Workman Success Systems, Agile was introduced, and I gave my coach some kickback there in the beginning on using the Agile. But the one right there, Pillar 1.001, was really where I started creating Hip Realty Group from scratch. We started with our core values, and it was honor, integrity, and perseverance, and we developed and created the company. So Agile took me from just Post-it notes to really executing on all these ideas that they've just generated lots of success. I don't know if I'm adequately describing it, but it's kind of like just skyrocketing because you have all these ideas, and we all do. We have tons of ideas, and we put them somewhere. We might put them in our notes in our phone, which I still do every now and then. We might jot it here, might jot it there, but then we forget about them. And they're money-making ideas. They're fabulous ideas. I mean, even Hip Realty Group, just the name has been remarkable in the success of that because it's memorable. And that was created in Agile, just from developing the core values and writing it down and remembering what were those core values I said I had. And we've just continued to build it out from there. Even the leverage, the one right next to it, the P1.002, learning that dump and sort, leverage is one that's required. It's not even a non-negotiable for the team. And it's the one event that I'll pay everybody, I'll pay for them to attend it. But that event, just learning the concept of dumping and sorting, whereas other events I've gone to, I take these ideas and I do nothing with them, as you talked about before, but now we're dumping and sorting, and I'm able to, all this right here that we've done so far has bettered our business. Even adding the word wisdom to our core values, that's generated conversations. So Agile's been a game changer, a huge game changer for me. I now use it in my family. I use it in my positions within the church that I hold there, which are public relation positions. So I run it's public relations, but we run it off of Agile. When we're building events for the community through that other position, we now run it on Agile, and it made me look impressive to those core people, but
yeah, right. You come in with your whole program. So I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to ask you some questions.
All right.
So I love that you're using it in the other areas of your life. I love that you have a family Agile. What are our priorities? What do we want to focus on? How do we know we get it done? There's a lot of real estate agents that don't think about, how do I build retirement? How do I create wealth? And if you don't have an Agile on that, or a project backlog, or if you don't give it any thought, then you'll end up being in your mid-50s and thinking it's probably time to start saving. Yeah. And that's not a good place. That's not a good place to be. It's better to think about it strategically, way in advance. And also, if you want to have a family that's close knit and together, you got to plan on that. You can't just hope it happens. It's got to be strategic. So as people are asking questions, I'm going to jump in a couple other Agiles really quick. Let's just kind of look at a couple of them. And so we look at Christie's for a second. Lee Tessier is a high producer. He's out of the Maryland area. I don't even know if anybody from Lee's team is on here. I asked Lee to be on the call, but the first thing I always notice when I bring up somebody's Agile or a Google Doc is I want to know, are they in it? So I see Josh, who's his right hand in it, and I see Lee is in the document. That means as team leaders that they're actually in their document looking at it and focusing on things. And so they've got some pretty big priorities, and they changed as of our coaching calls yesterday. Look, this is Lee and Josh in there right now. Hiring 6 new agents, running a BAM live class, meeting with the agents on Tuesday. They want to increase their Google reviews from 100 to 200. That was 100, and they hit that goal. So yesterday on our coaching call, they changed it to 200. And so they have a whole process of going through what that looks like. They do a brewery client event. So this is their sprint for their brewery client event. They want to do an empty nester seminar. Hiring 6 new agents has an entire sprint for it. And so one of the things that becomes powerful when you're running your Agile is that it gives you a holding place to create your to-dos. A lot of times we'll create a sprint and we'll list all of the to-dos, but then we don't do it next. But when you get a good idea around that project, you go to your sprint and you leave it there so that when it comes up next, you have all your ideas there and then you can execute on that. Does that make sense? And so a lot of times I'll have 15 sprints, even though I'm only working on 3. And 3 is kind of my magic number. And so I don't like to do 15 things at a time. I like to have 2 or 3 really clear sprints. And I always want to have my top one, the one thing that I want to have going that everybody does. Working your top 50, Tammy, you talked about really executing a program where the agents are working their group of top 50 so that we're focused on our databases and our sphere. Well, this is a sprint that breaks down all the things that the agents have to do to create their top 50, and then it ends with an event inviting them all to an event. And so that's a good example of somebody working a top 50 to get there. Folks, as I'm taking you through Agile and Tammy's describing how she's using it, how can you use this tool better if you already have it, or how can this help you if you don't have it? So one of the things that I'm going to make available to everybody that's on this call, just because you're here, is I'm going to give you a link at workmansuccess.com/2019 do right. And if you go to that link, I'm going to give you the template that we use to use our entire Agile system. And I'm also going to give you a video where it's called a Workman Wisdom, where I take you through and actually show you how to set up your Agile correctly. So we're just going to give you this to you as a result of being here on the call today. So make sure you take a snapshot of that link and do that. And really, if you really want to know how to use Agile, I think that you're not going to learn it in the video, but it's through talking through the process of what's a priority with your coach that really gets you the high level of execution. Tammy, talk about your interaction with your coach and what that looks like when you're using your Agile.
Well, I always love my interactions with the coach. Which part I'm trying to understand what exactly and I've been looking at these questions here real quick. Rick Fuller just wants to know where he can learn more about the 7-figure ride-along.
We'll send him a link on that.
Okay. All right. So Agile, like I said, when I first started coaching, it was something that he constantly asked me about, and I have a little here and a little there. And I actually remember, and I'm going to feel bad, but I remember this. I remember going to the 7-figure ride along, and my coach was there with me, and I had a team member with me as well. And Samantha and Christy this was last year when I went there, last, I think, spring. But they had their Agile up, and it was impressive. And I can even remember saying the term Agile, never heard of it, just because my personality is not an Agile personality. And I totally heard of it. And my coach, it was Paul Sessom, he kind of elbowed me, and I'm like, sorry, I need to get on that. But when I saw it executed, and that's what's key, is to see the bigger picture of what it can do for you. That's really where the understanding comes in. My D and my I needed to see that. And that's what 7-figure did for me. Was my D was introduced to culture and the importance of it. And my I was introduced to a spreadsheet because my I can get off spreadsheets. And I needed to understand the two of that coming together. And so my biggest takeaway then was the importance of the Agile. And that's really when I started really working on it, and it just started evolving. And anytime we talk about it, it evolves better. I know the last time when you and I talked about it, I needed to make some modifications to it to have other people read it and understand what's in my brain. If a total stranger were to read it, it needed to be understandable to that person, whereas it was understandable to me and understandable to the team members of my team that knew what we were doing and what we were working on. But a new hire or someone I might bring in to take on that, which I'm working on getting an office manager right now, they need to know what I was thinking. So did that answer you, Verl?
Yeah, it did. I think it's huge. You know, it's interesting to me to hear you talk about your relationship with your coach and him teaching you things. And then when you see someone else doing it, you're like, oh yeah, you did tell me about that, but it wasn't something that I actually implemented. We all have to get there our own way, and we all have to get there. There's like these moments in our careers where these lights go on. And what I'd like people to have happen for those of you that are on this call today, is I'd like today to be a light that comes on to you that says there might be a strategic way in order for me to run my business. You know, when we do Agile and we run it at Workman Success Systems, it gives the team really clear focus on what their priorities are. And so when you finish something or you have anything to do, you can go back to your Agile and you can look at it and go, oh yeah, this is next. And so I'm going to start working on that. It doesn't require a meeting. You just go into the sprint, you see what's next, and then people just start moving things forward. And you know you've got a great team when they start doing things without a lot of direction. They are working on the priorities, they're executing things, and they're getting stuff done. And that's what makes a team great. It also gives real purpose to your daily huddle. When you do your daily huddles with your key reports, you have your Agile up and you're looking at projects and are we moving them forward, that's how you know you're doing a great job. And it also, and this is something that I've had to learn as a leader, is it gives me the opportunity to recognize when my people are doing good things, especially people in support roles. They don't get, salespeople, when they have a closing or they get a listing agreement signed, you celebrate those wins. But the support staff, they don't get to celebrate those wins. But when you put everything in an Agile and you see your whole team working on things, it gives you the ability to recognize the great things they're doing to help everybody else be successful in their role. And so it becomes a place where it gives you the ability as a leader to express gratitude. And I think that we overlook that sometimes because we're so busy out there doing the business. And then, the last thing I'll share with you is kind of interesting. In the clear communication piece of it, it's so the other day we were doing a Agile meeting. We were doing a project, and we were having a discrepancy on how long it was going to take to get stuff done. And so we gave everybody little yellow sticky notes, and this is how Agile really works. We gave everybody a little yellow sticky notes. The person would describe what the activity was, and then everybody had to put on their sticky note their estimate of how much time it was going to take. And then we looked at them all, and most of them were 1 day, 1 day, 1 day, and then someone said 7 days, and then someone said 20 minutes. And so I wanted to know from the 7-day person what their perception of what was described to everybody else, and the 20-minute one what their perception was, because there was a communication issue. And then when they described that, everybody then re-voted, and it looked like it was going to take about a day and a half. So getting clarity based on the estimation of how much time it's going to take to complete a project it forced everybody to communicate more clearly in a team environment. And nobody was right or wrong. It's just that they were hearing it differently than somebody else. Does that make sense? And so that time estimation on completing projects is a really important thing. If Alyssa was on this call, I always give her deadlines before I ask her how long it's going to take to do it. And it drives her crazy, because if I ask her how long it's going to take to do it, she'll tell me what she really thinks. I like to push them a little bit faster than that through things. So that's just a different way we have working together. Tammy, this has been a great webinar, and I appreciate you really sharing how you're running your business, what you're doing, and how you're having success. Thank you for being so open and sharing with everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate you, Verl.
Yep, I'm happy to. Now, am I going to see you in Salt Lake soon with the speaker training?
Yep, I'm going to be there.
So tell me why you signed up for that.
I signed up to be better on these webinars and take me to the next level in public speaking, and also just to be surrounded by, that was my son, but just to be surrounded by everybody that's there. I have a coaching client, Eileen, she's on this call here, and she asked me, she said, what do you think about me signing up for this? And I told her, I said, one, the value is in really surrounding yourself by these people. I can't think of any time to have such a close-knit private opportunity with just 30 people of the top leading professionals in this industry. But not only that, but with Dawn and with Terry and with you, to have those days really almost one-on-one. That's the money gold of it to me. That's the golden part of it, is to be surrounded by all of you. But yeah, to take me to the next level in business. But anytime I get an opportunity to be surrounded by y'all, I read recently, sharp people sharpen others. So I want to be around sharp people so I can be sharpened, and that's what I hope to get.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you out there. And if anybody wants to know more about speaker training, just send us a note or an email, and we'll tell you about that. But it's basically, if you do sales meetings, if you're a working away facilitator, if you want to be on more events, if you want to dominate when you're on panels or webinars, then we put together an all-star group and content that's going to teach you how the professionals really do it. And there is a difference between winging it and being a polished professional. We're going to teach you how to do it at the next level. It doesn't even matter how good you are. I go to this event, and even though I'm participating in the teaching, I have 100% knowledge that I'm going to come away as a better speaker and presenter as a result of the things that I'm going to learn from Don and Terry as well. So thanks for being here, Tammy. Everybody, thanks for being on the call. Good luck with your businesses. You should think strategically. If you're not currently being coached by Workman, then reach out and ask us how we can help you, and we're happy to do that. We'll talk to y'all next month on the next Workman Success webinar. Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks, Bro.